what is it like to bring Superboy, Cyborg Superman, Steel, and the Eradicator finally to the silver screen?
You know, it's. I wish I could say something a little more exciting, but I think I was getting out of comics around that time. I remember the Death of Superman, the event, but I think I was old enough, or too old, to kind of like really be. Again, this is just me, like too excited for it because again, like half the people, I think I saw it as a little bit of a marketing event, and there was just too many books of the Reign of the Supermen for me to sort of keep up with, and so I mean, I think I've grown to appreciate them more, having to sort of work on this film, but also sort of going through the whole development process. I think they're all sort of like interesting characters with their own sort of motivations and like why they're there, why they're doing what they're doing. So the whole mystery of it, and I think each of the characters, each four of them, have are strong characters, and they have a valid reason for being in the mythology.
So Lois seems to be the heart of the movie. What is it like that scene between Lois and Diana in the bar when they're just talking about Clark or Kal-El and his passing? And it was very heartwarming. What was it like to bring that moment to the screen?
Oh, it's funny because like that was one of the moments, like that, and I think the balcony sequence scene. It's one of these things where even though I directed it or whatever, and we've gone through so many iterations of it, like when I see it, there's something about me that's really it's like these two sort of like icons coming together, in a way that I haven't seen before. So, I got to give credit to Tim Sheridan, for writing that, and also just the balcony scene, which is very sort of like, it's like reminiscent of the Christopher Reeve balcony scene, but different kind of a thing, and I love those scenes because I think there's so much subtext, and there's so much about those characters. That you have to honor, but how they react and who they are, I think it was so expertly written, but also I don't know. It feels genuine to me, and I don't know. When I watch those scenes, still I still get a little bit of a chill.
Last question. As a director, what's it like to finally get your shirt rip scene, at the end of the movie, and then you get to have Superman fly away, Reeve style, and look at Earth and observe? Like, what is that like as a director, as a fan of? You created that. Like, that's a piece of you. What is that like? It's super cool because, again, I know the Superman, for the last, 30, 40 years hasn't been the most popular, but when I was a kid and I watched Christopher Reeve movies, like the Superman movies and the Rocky movies, I just remember every time, no matter how, like poor or whatever, or people like it wasn't well received, I always left those movies just invigorated, and so it was great in one sense because I got to, to direct it, but it was sad on the other hand because that whole flying sequence was twice as long, but we had to cut a lot of it because some of the animation was a little poor. So, Phil, what was it like just designing all these characters? What was your thought process in updating them, modernizing them, bringing them to a new generation?
I mean, I think the thought process is always the same. We look at the source material and we look at the various interpretations, artistic or narrative, from the comics or from the different medium that they've been inserted into, and we just try to do what's right while being reverent of that stuff. We try to do what's right for the story that we're trying to tell and drop them organically into the continuity that we're creating.
What was it like just creating Steel and just all the features of his suit, from the hammer with the jet and the boots and how the cape gets sucked into the chest pieces? What was that like creating him, almost making him Iron Man-like?
It's a lot of fun, like I'd never drawn that character before, and I did a couple takes that nobody was feeling, you know what I mean? Because I was kind of what I love about these projects is I can always count on my collaborators to kind of, if I get off track, to kind of, because James Tucker has so much like DC lore just like in his database, and he just has an instinctive understanding of the way the characters should be depicted and what the fans love about the character. So if I get a little bit off course, he can always steer me right back. And sometimes I just like to explore because I'm having a lot of fun. You know, even if something isn't quite right, it's like, let me explore different shapes and silhouettes. So it was a lot of fun working on Steel. Again, a character I'd never drawn before, so I always enjoy that opportunity.
What made you want to put the Earth 2S on the Eradicator? Where did that come from? Why?
The what? Oh,
the Earth 2 Superman S on the Eradicator.
It just looks cool. It's organic. It feels very Kryptonian. Let's just say it doesn't feel like, you know, like I love the Donner Superman S. You know, but that's very much from my childhood and from a certain era. I think that the way that the styling we chose for Eradicator looks very Kryptonian and alien, and that's really appropriate for the story. So that was the thinking behind that.
Between Superboy and Young Justice, do you really enjoy youthful superheroes?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think I've always said when I work the movies that I've done with James, I think the ones that are closest to my heart, like from just a pure joy standpoint, are the Teen Titans ones. And I just love working on youthful characters because they're not perfect humans, and they're not really they're making all kinds of mistakes. So there's more potential for that. You know, whether we always, you know, get all that potential out of the script or the films or not, that's up for debate. But going into it, you're playing with like these very vulnerable characters, which adds a lot of potential for different types of stories to be told.
So James, what is it like to bring Steel to the forefront? He's a big part of this movie. He's the fan of the movie, in the movie. What is it like for you to give him some time to shine?
It was gratifying. I mean, that's part of the reason we set him up in Throne of Atlantis, was that I knew eventually we would tell the story. And I thought it was important to establish a continuity for the fans, even though they didn't realize it at the time. And so he's one of those characters, we've done him before. He was on Superman the Animated Series in an episode, and we made sure he was part of the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. So, you know, he's a great character. He's kind of DC's Iron Man in his own way. So, I don't know, he's a cool guy, and I think he represents a particular fan perspective, because he's a fan who actually becomes a hero, and that's very unique, whereas Jimmy represents a fan or pal. You know, he represents the person who wants Superman, who wants to know Superman, and Steel represents someone who's been inspired by Superman to also do good deeds and try to be a hero. So he's very specific in that way.
I spoke with Sam about this. Lois seems to be the heart of the film. What was it like to bring that moment where she's in the bar with Lois and Diana, and it's just a very emotional moment where they can just forget everything and just talk about Kal-El, the person, and Clark, and how great he was?
That was a scene I specifically asked for. I didn't want, because of the way we had to do it, we had one movie where Superman and Wonder Woman were dating, and then we had the next movie where suddenly they haven't been, and Lois is in the scene and in the picture. So I wanted for the audience to feel that Lois and Diana were okay and actually capable of being friends around Clark. Meaning, I didn't want them to be adversaries. I didn't want it to be a competition, which is also why we had Lois appear in Throne of Atlantis, and we planted the seeds of her attraction to Clark, even in that movie.
What was it like updating the backstory of the Eradicator, making him a projection to protect Superman as opposed to what he was originally in the 90s version of the comic?
Well, we have a thing called the squint test, and if you can describe a character on the back of a business card, that's a good description. The 90s version of Eradicator would not fit on a box of business cards. So we had to like compress him, you know, and yet keep his motivation at least close. He had to be from Krypton or be a representation of Krypton, and there had to be a reason why he was acting as Superman. So we came up with kind of our own version of that.
I prefer it.
Oh, yeah, simpler. Thank you. Well, that's a lot of what we do is try to take what's in the comics and boil it down to its essence so that people who haven't read the comic can understand and get enjoyment out of the character, and then hopefully find the comic book and discover all the other layers that we didn't show. So.
What are you most proud of from this film?
I'm proud that people actually were genuinely moved by Death of Superman and then this film when they had already seen versions of this story before. We kind of felt it was an uphill battle, you know, with the Doomsday animated movie and then BVS and even other episodes of the TV show which we worked on, where killing Superman is a trope now. So to make that resonate with people, yet again, I'm gratified by that.
Patrick, last time we met, you were a little reluctant to say that the cyborg Superman was the angriest and maybe the evil Superman. Has anything changed since then?
Oh yeah, he's a badass. Are you kidding me? You know, the only person, I mean, look, let's say, Steel's just putting on a suit, so he's not really Superman as far as I'm concerned. Superboy is exactly that, a boy. Fashion sense, yes. Left hook, no good. The Eradicator, I'm going to give some props to, without a doubt. The Eradicator is bad as well, but those glasses, they're like from 1970. So you're only left with Cyborg Superman as your badass guy in this film.
What's it like for you? Have you seen the film?
Oh yeah.
So what's it like for you watching the movie, but your character's almost voiced by Jerry O'Connell for most of it, and then you come out, and what is that like watching your character and waiting for you to pop up?
Well, it's crazy because the first time I think I didn't realize that. Like I kept going like, boy, I sound funny, and then I realized, oh, of course it's Jerry because there's all that going on. I was fine with it because in the end, it's thrilling to see my voice come out of Cyborg Superman's mouth. And when things, and by the way, the last third of the film, I mean, there's a lot going on with me, so I got no complaints when it comes to that.
Well, what is it like as an actor when you're in the booth and you're reading the script and it says like, pull out your apocalyptic brain and your mother box heart? Like, how do you get into that? Like, what gets you pumped up for that?
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember that moment. Wes Gleason was the booth director with me on that, and I guess I was sort of half-assing it. He's like, okay, that sounds like you popped a zit. Okay, that sounds like you fell off your bike. And then all of a sudden you get mad and you're like, rah! And he goes, that's it. Can you do it one more time? And they always want one more time. And I ripped that out and he was like, that's great. And you know, that's being able to trust your director and trust who you're working with. Because it's weirdly exposing, even though you're standing there in front of a microphone. You're sort of performing solo with people behind glass booths and a monitor in front of you, and it's sort of an odd thing. At least if you're on stage in a sword fight, you see the guy or girl across from you, and you're like, I hate that person. But in this, you really have to sort of make it up and go with it. So you got to really trust the people who are guiding you, and you know, I can't thank Wes Gleason enough.
What is your favorite part of the film? What did you really enjoy? Did anything really stand out in your eyes?
Well, there's a moment where it looks like Cyborg Superman and Hank Henshaw are going to get what they want. Everything's cutting their way, you know? And when I saw it the other night, it dawned on me, the audience gets to see, oh, even if he quote-unquote wins, it's not going to bring his wife back. So we can see it's going to be a hollow victory if indeed he would even get that. And I love that moment because that was an unexpected moment. It was an unexpected emotional moment that I didn't think you're going to find in a movie like this. And so I think that's what really gives it an extra layer.
So, Chris, what is it like being almost a fan of the movie? John Henry Irons, the ultimate Superman fan, kind of gets a chance to be the Man of Steel himself. What's that like for you to bring that to the screen?
It's kind of like real life because Superman was always my guy, my favorite superhero. So it was kind of like, oh, it's just like life imitating art, art imitating life. I grew up watching the Super Friends and anything animated I could. So it's like, it's perfect.
What's the difference for you for being a live-action superhero, putting on the suit, having to deal with that, and as opposed to just being a voice actor and not having to actually wear 700 pounds of steel?
Exactly. It's easy. I mean, it's so much easier. You know, you get it done in like a day. You get to go in your pajamas, and you know, nobody cares about how you look, and you're not worried about your six-pack or whatever. And you know, and then I go to work in black lighting and I wear a 60-pound suit and I'm sweating like I don't know what. I'm freezing when it's winter, and yeah. So it's a lot easier.
Have you seen the film?
I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to watch it tonight.
So what is the one thing from the film you're most excited for in terms of steel and everything? What is the one thing that you're most proud of? The
action. I can't wait to see the action. I mean, that's kind of the wonderful thing is like you're doing it, and anything like, you know, when you're doing things with special effects or whatever, you just commit 100%, and then you get to be surprised by how it's all played out.
How much of a rival is John Henry Irons to Jimmy Olsen's title, Superman's pal?
Man, I mean, Jimmy Olsen, I got to give it to him. But I think, you know, Henry Irons is more of, not so much a pal as just like, he's such a huge admirer. He's like a fanboy, you know.
Where did you get inspired for the Eradicator voice?
Well, you know, with both of these characters, Bibbo and the Eradicator, I had a deep sort of rooted place for them. Like somewhere in my childhood, I logged these characters and personalities when I was reading the comics. So I had to flesh it out a little bit. I mean, the Eradicator's kind of he's kind of hard to grab a hold of by his own nature, you know. So I just kind of went with, okay, well, he knows Superman. He's a Kryptonian. He spends his time with robots at the Fortress of Solitude. Doesn't get out much, but now he has to, and trying to, you know, for the right reasons, even though it doesn't, you know, maybe look that way. I don't want to give too much away, you know.
What's it like for you in the film playing Bibbo as the everyman, the guy who looks up to Superman but still wants to fight for Superman even though he's not around?
Oh man, it's a dream come true playing Bibbo. I mean, it's straight up, like, as a kid, I related to that guy so much, you know. I liked all the misspelled words. I liked just his whole look, and yeah, it's just a great joy. He's such a good guy, you know, and he just cares about his community, and he cares about the right things, you know, with Superman. You know, he takes a lot of pride in that, and I think that there's just something really relatable to that. Like, it's just awesome.
So between Bibbo, Jimmy Olsen, and Steel, who is actually Superman's pal?
Oh man, can't we all be pals? Well, if you ask me, it's Bibbo. I mean, I don't even know those other guys, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we might all be so lucky to be Superman's pal.
All right, Eric Holzman here, Batman on Film. I'm here with Rebecca Romaine, who plays Lois Lane in Reign of the Supermen. So, in this movie, Lois is dealing with the death of Superman from the previous film. So, how did you choose to portray both her strength and going on and the grieving process that she was going through?
Well, I mean, I think you just have to tap into wherever that is real inside yourself. It's, you know, getting to play an iconic character like Lois Lane is stuff dreams are made of, obviously. It was an honor to play her in The Death of Superman. It was an honor to continue this journey in The Reign of the Supermen. And I get to play a badass version of Lois Lane, which was a very, very welcome experience. And also the vulnerable side of her as well.
Speaking of playing badass women, you played Mystique in the X-Men movies in the early 90s, and now you're playing another one, obviously, in Lois Lane. Any similarities between the two?
I think I mean, badass is badass, and it has to come from some sort of well of truth within yourself in order for it to work, and in order for it to work in the story. But no, I mean, I don't think, you know, Mystique was always coming from a place of being misunderstood. Lois is always coming from a place of finding the truth, seeking the truth. So it's a little more noble in the case of Lois Lane.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I know you have twin girls at home. Do they feel it's cool that Mom is playing these characters?
They do. We did show them the death of Superman together, and we realized toward the end of the movie it wasn't quite appropriate for 9-year-old girls. They were crying by the end of it that we felt like terrible parents. But no, they know what we do for a living. They're excited. They love it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Eric Holzman here, Batman on Film. I'm with Jerry O'Connell, the star of Reign of the Supermen. He plays the lead character.
Are you freaking out that somebody in a Superman outfit is on Batman on Film?
No, we're pretty good with all DC characters. We don't, you know, we don't discriminate.
Sure, you know, because it's Batman on Film. I didn't want you like getting like jealous or weird or anything.
No, none of that. None of that.
Are you sad that Jason O'Mara, who plays Batman, isn't here today?
A little bit. A little bit. I thought it would have been cool if he was here, but
if you get scared or anything, just come on over and Superman can help you.
All right, so you've played Superman before in other animated films. So was this process any different for this story?
Yeah. First of all, I think DC animation is just doing it these days. I think actually a lot of other superhero stories are taking a lead from this. What's happening in DC animation? They write great scripts. They do a great job with the animation. They get deep with the characters. You know, as actors, they give us a lot to play with. I love it. It's an honor for me to be here. It's what everybody's doing with this whole DC animated world is big time, and it's an honor to be here. I guess you're super stoked for that Hush that's coming out.
Yes, I am. I got to speak to your wife before, who's in this movie with you. What was that like?
What do you think you're going to like better, Hush or Death of Superman?
Huh?
I'm kidding. I keep talking about Batman. Sorry, what was your question?
I said in this movie you got to be in it with your wife.
Yeah.
Right? So what was that like?
Super fun. We have a fun cadence with each other. We have a fun rapport. I mean, because we are really married in real life, but it's cute. You can really see that there's a relationship there. It's fun for us to watch them. It's fun for us to make them. It's a good time.
And what's the difference between doing voice work and live action work?
You know, I think the surprise of seeing the voice work, the whole animation and everything come together, you realize it's a real team effort, all these DC animated movies. It's a real team effort, and everybody does such a great job.